Okay, I call to order the virtual meeting of the Town of Roseville Board of Commissioners. This is Tuesday, January the 19th, 2020. Just like to welcome everyone that's looking on from streaming. We don't have anybody in chambers here. This is a virtual meeting that we're holding tonight. Just want to remind everybody that stay vigilant to your COVID requirements. We still having a lot of recorded I guess test positives on that, and we just need to be be very careful not to spread it. The good news is the vaccine is being administered. I know I talked to the chairman of Wake County Board last night, and everything was on go today for 65 and over. So if you're a citizen 65 and over, there's several places you can go. You can go to the Wake County website for one, get scheduled through there. You can go to some of your health sites like Wake Med, UNC health sites, and also get scheduled there. What encouraging everyone is to do by appointment. You probably have seen some things on TV where folks have been in line for 4 or 5 hours waiting for it. Wake County here, we're trying to do a little better job of scheduling, so you don't have to stay in line. So that would be a quicker way to do it, and get yourself scheduled to do that. So I hope this vaccine can get out to everybody that can qualify now to get it, and then we can go on with the rest of the phases. So with that, Robin, do you mind doing a roll call real quick, see who's present?
Not at all. When I call your name, if you would please indicate your presence. Commissioner Medley. Commissioner Medley, can you unmute? And
I did. I'm here.
okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Commissioner Sneed.
I'm here.
Commissioner Sutton.
Present.
Commissioner Vilga.
Present.
And Commissioner Wilson.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda, and basically what we have on that is one item to approve, which is the call for a public hearing for Tuesday night, February the 2nd, 2021. Is for reconsideration of the economic development agreement and purchase agreement between the town of Roseville and Cobblestone Crossing of Roseville LLC. So first I need a motion and a second, and then Robin will do a roll call on the vote. So do I have a motion for that?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, who was the second?
Everybody.
All right, I'll give it to you, Sheila. So Robin record, Jackie Wilson made the motion, and Sheila Sutton second. And with
Okay.
that, if you don't mind, do a roll call for the record.
And if you would just indicate your vote. Commissioner Medley.
Yes, I.
Commissioner Sneed.
I'm a yes.
Commissioner Sutton.
Yes.
Commissioner Vilga.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
And the motion carried unanimously.
Okay, well, thanks, board. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm gonna sit back a little bit and let Kelly take the next 3 items. These are all workshop items, and with that, Kelly, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. As you indicated, we have 3 work session items tonight, and then followed by an executive session. The work session items will be conducted by staff, and the second item will be with Wake County staff members And the third item will be with Stantec consultants. So the first item was a discussion that was in your interest. The commissioners made this request to talk about the existing R3 zoning as it is today in the UDO. And when we, as staff, were discussing this item for discussion tonight, we want to give you enough material, hopefully, that will allow you to leverage your opportunity to have that discussion from what we have tonight in our UDO. But also, we thought we'd take the opportunity to give you what we're thinking staff-wise is going to be what we propose in the LDO. So Danny and Julie are on this call, and they will take over the presentation. If you're okay, we would like to step through the PowerPoint a little bit to make sure that we come from a common place of knowledge from what we present, and then allow the conversation to take place. So I think that would be best if we would allow the staff to go ahead and present the material, and then you all engage as you want on the issue, if that's okay with you. If that is okay, Danny, it is, and Julie, it's all yours.
Thank you. Let me see if I am successful in sharing my screen here. I think, let's see, are you seeing this? Are you seeing
yet,
PowerPoint?
Danny. Not yet.
We see your name, Danny.
It's not showing up. I thought it would go directly to the screen, but it looks like it's not doing that. Because I'm hitting the shared screen.
Does Julie have it so she can she can run it?
Julie, you might have to pull it up. I thought this would do it on the iPad. Sorry for the delay, everyone.
Does Robin have to give you permission to share it? Oh, there we go. Never mind.
She's already done that. All right, you got it, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead to the next slide, Julie. Next slide after that. As you've already introduced, the question about the board's discussion on the current R3 zoning. So I'd like to talk about not only the district of the Unified Development Ordinance that we just had adopted, but also the Land Development Ordinance as it relates to R3 zoning district. So start off with, let's hit on some key elements of the comprehensive plan, the 2017 comprehensive plan. And when it was adopted and presented, if you look at part 3 of the land use and zoning, there's a section in there called needs and issues. And in there identified 3 needs dealing with residential development. And most importantly of those, it talks about maintaining a walkable, connected town in face of rapid growth, address multi-family housing demands in terms of location, quality, and emphasis of design and quality and quantity. And the existing plan's review system should be revised to provide a more expedited development review by administrative action, particularly for non-residential development. And then later, it talks about challenges, and these challenges are current UDO specifications are frequently used, but works efficiently mainly for large-scale development, and that there's no true code element that supports mixed-use development, mainly vertical mixed use. As the town grows, it's going to see similar proposals, and we've seen that because it's been done in the Triangle and with other towns adjacent to us. And then, of course, the need to create a mixed-use zoning element so when the downtown overlay could be eliminated, and therefore I simplified and encourage unit development to encourage the area. And of course, given what the market direction in the Triangle region, Roseville is likely to face continued demand for more multifamily, emphasizing that ensuring that multifamily housing is a high quality would be a balance against the need of affordable housing that multifamily units offer. So in here, that's basically basic elements of what I just discussed here. You see on the slide. Go ahead and go to the next one. And as I said, we're trying to keep it and emphasizing the ordinance goals, specify, encourage existing, enhance existing, and build upon new, strong, and livable neighborhoods, and take action to ensure that new housing stocks provides diverse options around Main Street. Go ahead. So the categories in the comprehensive plan breaks it into different land use classifications. The three residential classifications predominantly is your low density residential, which is predominantly single family. These are large lots on half acres or more, and in a density range of 1 to 2 dwelling units per gross acre. Now, remember, this is gross acre. A gross acre is whatever the actual yield of a site when it's developed. That includes all your open space, your roads, your streets, your parks, everything all combined together. Then you have medium density, which is predominantly single family with the portions that allows duplexes, townhomes, and multifamily residential. These are lots and tracts of a density range of 3 to 5 dwelling units per gross acre. It includes preservation of open space along with limited non-residential use under planned unit development or form-based code provisions. This is specifically the definition out of the land comprehensive plan. And then, of course, you have high density, which is a mixed-use neighborhood of single-family, duplexes, condominiums, townhomes, and multifamily. These are lots of tracts of a density of 6 to 12 units per gross acre, includes preserved open space, along with non-residential use under the planned unit development or form-based code. Go ahead, Julie.
Danny, can I ask a question there?
Yes, certainly.
That preserving open space, is there a number with that, amount or percentage, or what is, how do we control or how do we manage open space on those three items, three types
Yeah,
of use?
and the way to answer that is that a comprehensive plan does not have regulations. It's a direction and a guidebook. The actual implementation would be the current UDO leading into our land development ordinance. And currently in single family subdivisions, generally, it is 10% of the acreage has to be set aside for open space, with half of it being usable space. The other 50% can be wetlands, stream buffers, etc. And then there is in our townhome regulations and multifamily, there's additional open space requirement above that. That's particular for that type of use because of the higher density. So this implemented through the ordinance itself. So these terms here are just general terms of what we're trying to do, which gives us direction the way the UDO should be written, or in the future with our land development ordinance, it should be written in that fashion with this direction. Okay, Jolie. So very briefly, the other category that does include residential is your town center. And of course, this is a combination of non-residential and residential units, encouraging pedestrian activity using a form-based design. Very briefly, it could be buildings standing 2 to 5 stories, unlimited density above the storefronts. It's compact, it's walkable environment, mix of residential and non-residential uses in a town center. That's pretty much what we just did with the town center district. A mixed-use neighborhood is a mix of residential and ability to live, shop, work, and play in one community. The design and scale of development encourage active living through a comprehensive interconnecting network of walkable streets that offer multiple modes of transportation. Next one, please. And of course, last is reserve open space. So this can be public, it can be private, it could be federal, it could be neighborhood associations of land that they have and control and maintain, but includes areas contained in natural conditions such as wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, topography, close to surface bedrock, or rock outcroppings where the potential for development is limited. And that's what you'll see as we create each development, there will be open space, and when the comprehensive plan is updated and revised, but that particularly with the recordation of those subdivisions, all those spaces are classified as reserve open space once they get recorded. Let's go ahead. So let's talk a little bit about the current UDO. This is from the UDO itself. You have the R1 residential zoning district, which is predominantly a single family district. These are all single family, and the R1 has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. So that it puts you a little bit around a maximum of no more than 2 dwelling units per acre. It should be a little bit less than 2 dwelling units per acre. Then you got R2. R2 is similar to R1, except for the difference here is that the lot sizes go from 20,000 square feet minimum lot size to 15,000 square feet. So it's 5,000 square feet less minimum lot size in an R2 zoning classification. And again, this is still single family lot development. Go ahead. Then we have the R3. The R3 district, originally, as you recall, was for townhomes and multifamily, and was recently expanded to include single family. And in the discussion of that adoption of that ordinance, the minimum lot size of that district would put you at minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet with, I believe it's a 65-foot lot width. And with that density, you're looking at a maximum of probably the best you can get out of that. Just looking at raw land, not looking at roads, stream buffers, rock outcroppings, wetlands, or anything of that stuff. You're looking at about 4 dwelling units per acre if you just did a cookie cutter of lots, not looking at road frontage and stuff like that, because that's going to be less with that. Then, of course, you have our residential PUD zoning, which has a cap of 6 dwelling units gross for overall site. So if you've got 100 acres, you can't put more than 600 residential units. And then within those categories, you can do 6 dwelling units for single family maximum. You can do 10, excuse me, I stand corrected. It's 8 dwelling units. I stand corrected. It's 8 dwelling units per, it was originally 6. It's now 8 dwelling units per gross acre, which puts you around 800 units on 100 acres. If it was just pure raw land with no topographic conditions, perfect flat land with no need of roads and streets, etc. And then you could do 6 dwelling units per gross acre for single family. That can't get above the density of that because you've got to designate that area as a district called R1 or R2. And then you have an R3, which is townhomes and multifamily. Those densities are a cap of 10 dwelling units per acre on townhomes and 16 dwelling units per acre for multifamily. The density in the PUD is higher than the R3. And of course, it is a planned unit development. It goes through approval. It is an actual, in essence, its own zoning classification and its own standards subject to what's listed in there.
Danny, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Now, this is the one that when we get ready to move, we want, if we keep this, we want to make sure that we incorporate mandatory retail or commercial to go to complement the housing. Am I correct?
Yes, that's the topic dealing with the questions of the PUDs. Yes.
Okay. Well, and we're not taking any action tonight. This is just.
No, and again, I am focusing on the residential side, but yes,
Okay.
the commercial side is something to think about, particularly with the PUDs or the form-based code that will be talked about later in the land development ordinance to be presented to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead, Julie. So as you know, that the text amendment for dealing with R3 was adopted, added single-family dwellings. We did add other uses that were not included, such as recreational parks and centers, private recreation facilities, and part of the subdivision. It added the dimension standards for single-family dwellings, so that includes lot width, front yard, backyard, and rear yard, and side yard requirements for single-family, and of course, the minimum lot sizes. It did reduce the limit of how much you can do as townhomes and multifamily to 15 gross acres. Previously, it was 20. Directed, and we adopted where it was reduced. And it's limited to a density of 5 dwelling units per acre for single family, 8 dwelling units for townhomes, and 12 dwelling units per acre for multifamily. So you obviously see R3 is less than the PUD. And of course, it has the lot size and lot widths and something like that. Go ahead, Julie. So just a quick comparison of Rolesville to Wake Forest and Raleigh. And we were trying to find comparisons of a similar R3 zoning classification. Raleigh has smaller lots. They have a minimum lot in the R10 district. They refer to the density of 10 dwelling units per acre and 4,000 square feet with 45-foot lot width. In Wake Forest, it's the GR10, again, 10 dwelling units per acre with 5,000 square feet minimum lot area with 50-foot lot width. And of course, you see the setbacks. And of course, Roseville, we're different. We're larger, have a less density at 5 dwelling units per acre, 10,000 square feet, minimum lot size with a 65-foot lot width, and of course, a little bit larger, at least in the front yard and side yard for the setbacks. Go ahead.
And Danny, let me say that I have no problem with us being more stringent and with 10,000 square foot lots.
And again, I'm not trying to take a position on this. I'm just sharing information so you know the comparison to what Wake Forest, which is next door to us, as well as Raleigh. Julie, can you make that is everybody able to see that? Can you make that a little larger on your screen? Go back. If you can't, that's fine.
I'm not sure I can.
That's okay. It's okay. You, of course, have it on your iPad or your computer, or you can enlarge it. You can just leave it as it is. That's okay. The left side is the zoning. And what we're trying to do here in the shading here, you'll see some white. We picked the residential classifications of the R3, the R2, the PUDs, and the R3 and R1, R2. And all those that may be conditional or special use permits and something like that. That's what you see on the left. That's your existing zoning. Now, the zoning was adopted in the current form, later amended over the years in 2004. In 2017, the comprehensive plan took what was the zoning classification concept and moved it over again from the original plan, plus looking at it with a fresh new look, looked at it with classifications of residential. So there here on your right, you'll see your high, your medium, and your low, your medium, and your high. The low is the yellow on the right-hand side there. Julie, will you point that, please, with your pointer? That essentially is the watershed for the Little River. Predominantly anything in the Little River watershed was thrown into the low density residential classification. Anything outside of that was not commercial or non-residential use was, particularly as you go further out, was put into the medium classification. And the reason of that is because that's the area we have the greatest ability for the town of Rolesville to extend or have already existing water and sewer services. And with that kind of infrastructure, your medium density category would be appropriate. And then, of course, the darker brown, and if you can hit some of those, Julie, and point them out to them, there, yeah. That was the areas around Main Street was identified for your higher density zoning. Now, at the time of this plan, that was the concept. Okay, next. Next slide, please. Then, of course, you have your commercial industrial. And on the left is the current zoning of commercial, the CO district, this commercial district, and your office and professional with some industrial. And you see that's predominantly along the corridors of Main Street and Rogers Road. And on the right is the comp plan, which again, you see the red, which is the commercial identification in the core of the town from Burlington Mills Road going up to Young Street. and then of course go down on Rogers Road. But then as you go towards the bypass to South Main Street and along the bypass all the way up to East Young Street, yeah, I did that right. You'll see that we have a mixed use development, mixed use neighborhood, classification, which I read to you. And of course, there is also the business park. Business park is mainly opportunities for employment, but also to be walkable and accessible to where residential would be nearby, so they could be easily bikeable or walkable or easily accessible through even greenway trails and so like that. And that's that orange area you see there. Go ahead. So with all of the comprehensive plan and the old UDO moving forward to the land development ordinance, the consultant with Kimley Horn, Kelly Kepler and his other staff is drafting up the new districts for the land development ordinance. And in that concept, we're trying to reduce the number of districts, because I didn't list to you all of the specific districts. Matter of fact, there's a lot more sub-districts within those things. There's a R1, there's an R2 duplex, there's an R2 multifamily that I have not seen any property zoned with that. We're trying to clean it up and make it simpler. And this will also be easier to understand when you have low density identified in your comprehensive plan. There's a residential low density district that goes with that. So with the same thing with the medium density and the high density, there is a specific zoning classification that will connect to the comprehensive plan for those categories. They're going to be easy to match. And in that part, you will have the densities. Go back, please, Julie. One more. All right. So low density, again, is going to be a density range. It's single family, just like it was detached dwellings. It will be a density that's low, that in range of 1 to 2 dwelling units per acre. Okay, go ahead. Medium density, again, it's going to be used for residential purposes, including detached, attached, and double family as duplexes, dwellings, which is similar to what you got in the code now. It will be a density of range of 3 to 5 dwelling units per acre. Again, matches up to similar to the classification in the comp plan. Then go to the high density, please.
Well, one question.
Go ahead.
Before we get too far, go back to that medium.
Yes, sir.
The slide that you showed us, that medium is a large swath of land. It's almost everything, except for the watershed and the downtown, which is high, which everything else is medium. And the medium is used for density, but it's not really, in other words, it's not really set for the type of density. In other words, anything in that large swath of medium, you can put townhouses and these things you mentioned here in, and there's no way to have medium, say single family only, and not have townhouses, is it?
You can do it through your decisions of land use category. Your low density is exclusively single family. And we'll give you more particulars of the standards coming up with that to be in that density range. Your medium density will have a little bit more variety into it, as you're describing. The question is going to be if it's traditional zoning classification of medium density or choosing the form-based code. The form-based code our intent is to make it more attractive for development, similar to like the PUD. And it will go through some standards and guidelines to help give you the diversity and the mix you're looking for, Mayor. But the other issue with single family predominantly is housing choices, cost and infrastructure costs for putting it in. You will find that the affordability comes into sometimes smaller lots. Affordability comes in with townhomes. And even if they do propose in the ownership, the condominium option on multifamily, not too many people are doing condominiums anymore. But those are the choices of trying to get housing variety in a neighborhood. And that's what this is following from the direction of the 2017 comprehensive plan. Now, the question of higher density at certain levels, at certain locations, that is a decision-making process that will be done through rezoning or zoning of the property, or through the development review guidelines that we put in there. And there'll be something more you will see as we move forward. But I think you can express what your concern is, particularly as we move to the median density in these outlying areas as identified on the comp plan, particularly when you get out here further out on Rogers Road, Burlington Mills Road predominantly, the big, large tracts of Burlington Mills Road down to the bypass, the Gay property. There is that big track up there in Burlington Mills Road area. We get constantly inquiries about developing the bit because there's sewer in the proximity. It's just a matter of getting water in there and working out the access. And I can easily see a 200 to 300 acre big residential development being put there someday. I don't know if that answered your question, Mayor.
It does. I just know, in some of the recent discussions we've had with some applicants, there is no limit to where you put a townhouse at. You can put it anywhere in town, just about, except for the watershed. And I'm just wondering if we shouldn't think about that a little bit.
Well, again, it's with these density ranges, and so anyhow, these are all good questions to go into discussion here. But I think you're going to see that there's wanting to be more diversity of housing choices than just single family lots, and you'll see that in the surrounding areas. You're seeing it on Forestville Road. You're seeing it on Rogers Road, as an example, Wake Forest and us, and even going further up towards Forestville Road into Wake Forest. It's coming towards Rolesville, is the best way to say it.
Danny,
If
I
I
do
can-
want to, can I interject there just for a moment?
Sure.
Right now, Mayor, what we are proposing for the medium density residential area is just the detached, attached, and double family dwellings, which would be the medium density. The high density is where we would allow the townhomes. So what we have right now as proposed for the LDO is that the townhomes would be only in the residential high density, which is the next classification, with the 6 to 12 units per acre that we're going to be talking about here in just a second. But right now, what we have the medium density set as is just detached, attached, and double family dwellings, which is the duplexes, not the townhomes.
Okay, so that is a big change there.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Does the board follow that? Because that means, R3 townhomes is very limited to just high density, right?
Let's go on to that, and then we'll come back and have a discussion there. Let's see what.
Right. Let me go ahead. Yeah, let me go ahead. I'm almost finished wrapping this up. Julie, go ahead. Yeah, thank you. So then the last is the residential high density category. And again, that's a more higher density of 6 to 12 dwelling units per acre. It does include, it says attached, double family, and multi-family dwelling units. So that's going to be, and if you look at the comp plan, that area is more off closer to the town core, particularly off of Main Street, because we're wanting to make that very walkable and easily accessible to help encourage, to give us the fostering of strengthening our non-residential use of commercial and industrial along that corridor. And of course, with the mixed use neighborhoods, we're trying to encourage that as well with some options of that when you go into the definitions and terms here, which will be the form-based code options that you will see later. And of course, you see the number.
What's attached? What's attached?
Well, again, I'm going to have to go back to, they're using the term attached, double family, and multifamily dwelling units. Townhomes technically are attached resident, single-family dwelling units under the state building code. But
Okay,
we'll work to get that clarification as we move forward on the process. But as Julie's indicated, this is the district, which is like the R3, is for the townhomes would go in. And if you follow the comp plan, without having to change the zoning, I mean, the comp plan being a decision of a petition of a zoning case, and it would not be consistent to the comp plan, it will require under 160D that we amend our comp plan simultaneously going to this classification of high-density residential to be a high-density classification, particularly if it's marked medium. So it will be a conscious legislative decision to change the zoning and to change the comprehensive plan and agree that that's appropriate to go to high density. Julie, go ahead. I think that's pretty much, is that it?
So you
Yeah,
are
that's about it.
envisioning,
Go ahead.
question. You are envisioning these three classifications to get to replace everything we've got.
As far as residential, yes, it
As
would be
far as
three districts.
residential. Okay.
It'd be
all right.
three districts.
Right, there'll be three districts. Okay.
And then when you look at the comp plan,
Yep.
and it says medium density, then you, and they petition high density, then you know that it's inconsistent with the comp plan, because if it was marked medium density for the land use plan, and they petition the higher density zoning classification, then we also will have to amend the comp plan to go to that classification for that area, for those properties being identified.
Okay.
Just like we've been doing an occasion in the past. The difference here is there's never been the connection of the implementation of the zoning classifications to the comp plan, as well as we're going to be doing with the new land development ordinance. Any other questions? Comments? Thoughts?
This is Sheila. I have some questions. Are we ready to talk about it now? My question is, it's hard to do the comparison without like a side-by-side. I think it would be helpful for me to see a side-by-side, to see a paragraph at a time. To me, it's a bit confusing. When you talk about current zoning versus future proposed zoning, it would help to have a side-by-side just for clarity's sake. But my concern is figuring out R3 so that it is more, I guess, akin to the RPUD, but also ensuring that we have, and I'm saying commercial, I'm using that very broad language of commercial. When I say commercial, whether that's retail, office space, you can help me on that, but more than just residential is what I'm trying to get. I think we have pretty good standards for residential, and looks like the proposed things are going to help it even more, but I don't feel like we're addressing the commercial. And when I look at your future land use map here, the red is very little and the industrial is even smaller. So what I'm seeing is maybe actual numbers, actual mapping of what we have currently versus future land use. Aren't we moving into proposing what we want to have? Yes, that map. I see very little red and very little purple.
And good question there is that when the 2004 zoning was done, it was based off an old plan that was originally 20 years ago almost. And Roseville wasn't this large of area and had much smaller. I think when that plan was done, there were about less than 3,000, probably about 2,000 to 3,000 in population.
Sure.
And then we've got the massive, fast growth that we've occurred. You got the bypass being built, so on and so on. So the 2017 plan did go bold in identifying mixed-use development and a business park area off the bypass. And that's combination of commercial with residential, because we know that the rooftops help support the commercial and also helps to create the market, not only locally that's walkable, but also fit in to attract the regional population to drive here, to go to your bigger grocery stores, your drug stores, and your restaurants and so like that, oriented to the highway. So you're right. you're seeing, well, we could have colored that. That's from the comp plan. That's from the current zoning map. We'll try to use more red in the next new zoning map, so you'll see it more. But but you look on the right, and I apologize, we're not able to, you could probably enlarge that with your iPad or your computer. But
I
you'll
can see it,
that
Danny.
it encompasses pretty much along Main Street. Now, your question about industrial, there's not a lot of actual industrial property here in Roseville, which was surprising to me. The only industrials you got is the site down here adjacent to Team Extreme. And there's a push to go commercial with that because it's not very large for industrial. The other is, of course, our existing industry and the monument companies, Pine Glow and something like that. The bypass, the business park is the greatest opportunity to get actual businesses and development in there. However, the topography in that area is going to be challenging. It's a lot of hilly terrain through there, but it was the best we could do. And there is also the extension of Fowler Road to help provide access all the way over to Jonesville Road, which is a future road that runs from the comp plan.
Right. So
I get your point in that you're saying you want to see some commercial with the residential. The biggest challenge with that is finding the location. That's the key to commercial. You're going to see the key corridors will be Young and Roseville Road, and the bypass, South Main Street, Rogers Road is your best, and a little bit of portion of Burlington Mills Road are your best opportunities for commercial. You may get some further out as you head towards Burlington Mills Road to Forestville Road, but it will be something that will be supported to serve the neighborhood, not something very large, I don't think.
I guess, thank you for that, Danny. But I guess my question is more of, if we're looking towards the future, are we looking to designate land as such versus marking what's there? I feel like this is a marking of what's there. And when I see the word future, I'm thinking, aren't we looking to say, okay, this could be commercial? Has that been designated? Or am I missing that on the map? Future potential, either industrial or commercial, as well as commercial being a part of R3.
And the best way to answer that is a choice of, do you want to go designate something commercial and say that must be done? Or do you want to have flexibility to get a proposal through your legislative process to do the zoning and look at your form-based code to get a specific plan, kind of like you did with your PUDs, but use the form-based code will be more flexible and more legislative and get you out of the quasi-judicial process. And that probably will give you a better feel of what you're creating. Because you're interested in getting non-residential use activity with the residential. And that doesn't necessarily have to be commercial. That could actually be jobs. It could be employment-based facilities. It could be manufacturing. It could be warehousing. It could be mom and pop operations through a business park, all kinds of different categories that would fit into that to create that non-residential activity.
So how do we get that? Are we getting that with what we have with the mixed use? Because that was my next question. What is mixed use? Explain that.
Well, and the challenge we have now is we can get the residential. That's the easy part. You know that. You've seen
Exactly.
that. The challenge is getting into commercial. And I'm not going to get in, I'll let Kelly or Michael go in and talk about it, but there's going to require you to help facilitate, even in some cases, depending on what they're wanting to do, to help provide some incentives to get better commercial.
Hey, Danny, let's let maybe Julie, can you tell us, we've talked about the residential, but what's being proposed in the LDO for mixed use? I think that gets to the question maybe. It's not on this presentation. Julie, can you describe what's being proposed for mixed use at this stage?
Yes, I can. Hang on just 1 second. Let me get there. So for mixed use, our districts are going to be floating districts, And what happens with the floating district is that you have an underlying zoning, which will basically match what you see today on the zoning map. We'll do label changes to update the zoning map to the new labels that we're going to. And then with the floating district, you will petition to be a part of that mixed use district. We are talking about 3 different mixed use districts. At this time, we're talking about a town center, which is the area that you're familiar with, having just passed the town center text amendment on the 5th. And then we're talking about a 2 different, more kind of step downs, not as intense as a town center, mixed use areas where we have a corridor mixed use area and a suburban mixed use area. The suburban mixed use would be a little bit farther out. The corridor would be, of course, along our corridors to help get that scalability that we're talking about and that we need. With the town center, it's a very high intense use. It's 0 lot lines. It's 5 stories. It's unlimited square footage for your commercial base. It's upper story residential. The commercial is a big push for the town center, and for the corridor mixed use and the suburban mixed use, there'll be step downs, so the intensities will be a little bit less. The buildings will be a little bit smaller. They may still be a design alternative or something to allow the height to go up to this 60 feet. We're still talking about that. The front setbacks will be not at 0. The rear setbacks will be graduated as you go down from the corridor to the suburban mixed use, so that the view sheds are maintained, that scalability is maintained, and the building will have about the same transparency requirements, the same drive-through requirements, the same street wall requirements that we see in the town center. They'll just look less intense as the town center does. So as you go through these mixed use areas here, and along these lines, as we start looking at those, what we're looking at is getting that commercial and a little bit of the residential, whereas a town center will be the highest use. These outline areas along here will be a corridor. Maybe along here will be some suburban mixed use where you have that good mix of commercial and residential, but the scalability will look more like what you're used to seeing. So it doesn't have a stark contrast between your residences and your mixed use and commercial.
So Julie, the 2/3 of those have already been zoned to residential, or what you just outlined. So
You got the PUD. You have the PUD over there of the
Right.
point.
You have the point at the PUD and Kayla's,
right.
and then you've
That's
got this here
right.
still open for
Business
development.
But
The business park open
my
for
question
development.
is, for beyond those areas, if there's other areas in the community that are on the comp plan that are identified as single family or medium, can they fall under those
Yes.
2 overlays? Okay.
Yes, because they're floating districts. So you have the underlying district, and then when you rezone to that floating district, you just update the comprehensive plan as part of your consistency statement, saying this is what we're doing because we feel this is what the vision matches for our town. And so while it's inconsistent, we are amending our plan so that it is consistent, and those floating districts then can be wherever they best fit.
And
Based upon
as it stands today, the comp plan dictates, but so it's really a developer-driven choice. What allows the town board or town to make those choices where those areas could be? Is it a comp plan amendment discussion?
It is. If you'd like to take a look at those future land uses, as Sheila was saying, as we go through what what you want your future land to be designated as. If that's something that the board feels this future land use map here no longer guides what the vision for the town is, especially knowing that some of these are already designated as our PUD, and we would like to do something more to see more red, see more mixed use along the way. That would be a future land use discussion that the board needs to have as part of a comp plan update.
So go to the map before this, which are all the residential. There we go. So all that goldenrod, for lack of a better description, would be the land that if we did that, if that's of interest, that would be the land that would be kind of up for consideration.
Yes, that's ripe for the picking, if you would.
And
So I'm gonna stop asking questions, but I was hoping, Sheila, that might have got a little bit to where you were going, but I'll let you keep on going, Sheila.
But I was going, the only thing I was going to say with that, Kelly, is that with the form-based code, there's the lower density suburban category. There's going to not have the intense commercial, but they have some commercial in there, but it'd be more, less intense, but it have more residential. And that would be probably your goldenrod area, which you're just looking at there is a medium density. Again, with the mixed use development neighborhoods is where you're going to see the more urban, traditional, not at scale of a town center, but more commercial emphasis with it, with the residential tied into it. And of course, you got your town center core, which is that main area we're dealing with, Main and Young.
Okay, Sheila, keep on going.
I'm just not seeing an area where we're requiring commercial. And our PUD was problematic before because although commercial was a component, it was a component that could easily be opted out of. So I'm still stuck there, like, where are we're getting the residential. So that's already being, that demand is there. But we also need to diversify our tax base once again, as we all know. So if we don't force the hand, it's not going to happen voluntarily, as we see. So where is that going to be a part of this process?
Well, I think we'll discuss all that when we get further into the zoning map itself, but your point's well taken, Commissioner Sutton, and we'll incorporate that as we move forward to see if we can refine that.
I don't understand, because we're talking about zoning classification. So what do you mean by when
Well, we're just talking about with our intent, and we're still working on this. We haven't seen the zoning map they're drafting yet, but we will be discussing what you just shared with us to clarify, to get those areas identified to where it leads to the direction you're looking for as we put in the regulations and standards to facilitate that commercial with the residential.
I'm going to restate it a different way, Sheila. I think that I think that we're going to have to get through the LDO. The zoning map won't change much, and we're going to have a comprehensive land use plan discussion. And that's going to be where you're going to make the determinations of where you want, because it will be a public process to decide if you want to modify the goldenrod to some level and include mixed use in there as a potentially directed. So I don't know, I don't think it's going to be, and Danielle, stand corrected, but I don't think it's going to be a question we're going to go through in the LDO on the zoning map, because we don't have time for that right now to do that. That's more of a comprehensive land use question. Then that would be reinterpreted back into a future amendment on the zoning map. But am I correct on that, Danny, or not, or Julie?
Well, the main area I want to emphasize is your mixed use neighborhood. There's flexibility in there to look at what you want to do with that. But I think the intent of the mixed use neighborhood is to go towards a form-based code option that includes incorporating commercial, non-residential with residential development to create that mixed use activity center.
Okay, but let's go back to the map.
That's your white area. That's your predominantly your white areas there that hasn't
Right.
gotten commitments already.
That's right. And if Sheila's saying there should be more, which I'm hearing she's thinking that out loud, then we need to look at what's in the goldenrod Won't happen in this LDO discussion, I don't believe. Is that a fair statement?
I think it's a fair statement, because
I
I
think
think
it's fair.
some of the outlying areas, you're gonna be very challenging to go to put in a higher density or higher intensity of development, particularly commercial, out in those outlying areas at this time. And the other issue is always is the consideration of what the market will bear.
But it's also more of a public process.
Yes.
It is a very public process.
Is if the board is interested in looking at areas of modification, it should be a very deliberate conversation for extended period of time, including the landowners who are going to be affected by that,
Yes.
and have them be a part of the process. So
Hold on. Y'all are way off from what I'm asking. Maybe
Okay,
I
keep on
haven't
going.
asked the right way.
Go ahead.
I'm asking about the zoning classifications. The ones we currently have are R1, R2, R3, and RPUD that's sitting there that we're not using.
Okay.
I'm asking about the zoning classifications that we currently have. How do we get commercial in there? That's my only question.
Well, between now and July 1st, right?
Say that again.
Between now and July 1st, because that'll all be changed by the time you adopt the new LDO.
All right.
Based on what we just went over. Is that, but go ahead, I mean, because what we just went over was what we have existing, and the LDO is going to make modifications that are going to match the comp plan. And you're wanting to know what will happen. So there will be new definitions that we just reviewed that aren't that much different. And there will be a mixed use definition that will mirror or be available very similar to the PUD right now.
I have a question. Kelly, you started going on about the property owners in the areas where there's a possibility for commercial. How does that even happen? If all the land is already, that we're seeing in all these different districts is already designated as a particular zoning district, how do you even incorporate commercial into that? It's like with the farmers who didn't want to turn their land into residential. How does that happen? You started saying that, but you didn't finish.
So if there are specific areas, and I'm really speaking out of my non-planner realm.
Well, that's okay. Well, you know what?
Yeah,
Julie
but
can answer
there's-
that, or Danny, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, but when you said it, I was like, okay, so I'm not the only one.
So if there's specific areas that you want to modify the future land use map that is up now to the white, expand the white, for example, and the flip map down that Julie went over to make more, there you go, mixed use neighborhoods, that reddish, I don't know what we call purplish color.
Mm-hmm.
If there's more of that desired, then you would have to identify those areas and you go through a process of amending your comprehensive land use plan.
Okay.
And
All right.
that is a public process where you want to make sure those you're looking at, the property owners that you're looking at making that modification, would be part of that input.
Can I jump in? I'll try to explain it very quickly. The difference between existing zoning and future land use is the existing zoning is what's on the ground currently and what the property owners are expecting or paying taxes for on their property. A future land use, which is where the right side of the map is with how we've designated, is what the town's vision is for that growth. So the existing zoning may not match the future land use because the future land use is our vision for the town, while the existing zoning is what is currently on the ground. As part of the LDO update rewrite, what we're doing with the existing zoning map is doing more of a label change. If you're wanting to add add things or look at areas where you would like to see more red or more industrial, more commercial growth, how you would like to add that. That is where we talk about future land use, and that is the comprehensive plan update process. That is not part of what we're doing with the LDO rewrite at this time. What we're doing at this time is trying to match what we've got on the ground with where we're going with the form-based codes. I don't know if that helped any or not, but that I think there's, sorry, I think there's a little bit confusion about the zoning versus the land use and what each process does. And so when you rezone land, you are looking at the future land use plan and you're looking at the comprehensive plan to see if it is consistent. And then you pass a consistency statement, or you pass a consistency statement saying that you know it's inconsistent with what you said before as part of your policy, but you would like to have this new development in this area. And so you're amending the plan because you like the vision and you like what's happening. So you're going to amend the plan. And that is what the consistency statement does with every rezoning case you have. So,
Okay, and I want to build on what Sheila was saying. For us to get more commercial, and I'll just use the word retail office in Rolesville, we've got two choices. We will designate areas where it will be built, or we can also look at these residential codes that we're going to look at changing residential designations and say you've got to have a certain amount of retail in that. That's our only two choices, and it's got to happen south of the watershed. And for us to get more commercial in here, and Sheila's absolutely right, we've got to address this issue. We don't have a whole lot of land to work with because we've already put in so much residential. So we can take the areas that are purple, and I'm partially colorblind, they look purple to me, even though I know some of them do have some topo issues. But I envision retail and office going along the belt line out there. But there is another way. If we look at our residential zonings and say, you know, which would make it a PUD or modified PUD, saying we're going to approve this subdivision, but we want so much retail in it too. And they are our only two options. But if we're getting off, if we're not supposed to be talking about that now, that's fine. But that's something we need to address and think about.
Yeah, I think Julie, I think what the commissioners are saying, and I see it too. You know, when you look at for example, Jackie mentioned the outer loop there. There's no red there that says commercial is going to be there. There's none at all. Now, you know, Sheila's question is some of that color that's not red there can be commercial with, you know, with some type of multi-use type facility going in. But how do we know that's going to really happen? How do we know that's going to happen if it's not in the land use plan that this has to be commercial?
Well, here's one way it'll happen. These big boxes have it down to a science. They want to be within so many driving minutes of rooftops. And the first big box that comes to us along the outer loop there, regardless of what we've got it zoned now, and they ask for retail, we're going to, unless we're idiots, we're going to approve it and put a big box there because mom and pops love to be in the shadow of big boxes because you've got the traffic there. Yeah, it's going to start and it's going to come as we get more rooftops. They're going to come to us as they did at Heritage. Andy Ammon said that Wake Forest spent so much money to get retail in Heritage that they never should have should have spent because the big boxes were coming anyway. And you've got your grocery stores there now to prove it, as well as some fast food. But again, we've only got two options. And that is to amend the, well, not amend, but when we adopt a residential zoning class, we can say we want so much retail in that. You know, or we pick parcels that are out here now and we go ahead and make them red and say that's going to be commercial.
So that this is helpful for me to continue listening. Can we go up to, Julie, the proposed definitions again?
You talk about the zoning?
Yes,
land development?
the LDO proposed.
Yeah.
You
If I'm understanding correctly, I'm
Let me
thinking
find it.
that's where the changes need to take place.
Julie, go back down to the proposed.
I'm trying to find them, sir. Hang on.
Further down to the below it, but I
So,
apologize. We didn't.
so let me ask this question, Danny. Can you go down to the next one? I don't think there's any question. I don't think anybody has concerns about the single family. Below residential. So this one and the next one, what I'm hearing the board interests are, there is try to work a definition of commercial in these two, if that's feasible.
Yeah,
Is that?
Let me,
I'm not sure if you want commercial in everything we do. I mean, because in some places they're not going to be feasible to put commercial way out somewhere. What we need to do is designate where we want the commercial to go and make sure that happens, I think.
and if I may interject here, I think what we're losing acknowledgement of is the form-based code mixed-use development option you're going to have is that area you see on the bypass, the area South Main Street, those big, large areas. That's the highest probability of getting commercial shops, work, play, live in combinations, neighborhoods in all of Rolesville. And because it's got easy access to the highway, it's got easy access to the region, it is got water or sewer availability out there, and the land available is out there that has raw land. And you're going to see people wanting in the mixed use neighborhood area designated there, go to the form-based code. And it's going to be a combination of townhomes, apartments, and commercial, and single family, very small lots possibly. And that's what you're going to see coming up for those quarters. Not much different than you see just down the road, down there on Forestville Road and across from each other, the shopping center where the Lowe's is at, and the residential behind it, and the residential on the other side. Now, you're not going to see big, massive commercial here yet. You're not going to see a mall. You're not going to see a major power center shopping center, I don't think at this time, because we got too much competition from what's out there. What you're going to see is what's going to serve the immediate area, serve Roseville and some of the surrounding communities. And there's going to be a petition process to go to the mixed use option and the form-based code. You don't want to go just throw it out there without having some scrutiny of how that was going to be designed. You're going to be looking at more of the form of the buildings and everything and less about the uses. You want to say, we want commercial, we want residential, but we want a good balance of it and a good mix of it.
So just so I understand, Danny, if you wrote into the medium or high density that residential is required,
No
then
commercial.
no matter where that, I'm sorry, commercial is required, no matter where it is on that map, they're required to put in commercial. And you're saying that it may not fit in the areas that are designated as residential, high or medium, correct?
And go back to the residential zoning map, comprehensive plan, land use, Julie. So let's go back to the next one. Yeah, that one. You see the land use plan, you see the lot of the white. That's your commercial, your industrial, your mixed use, your business park.
Yeah.
That's where your mixed, predominantly heavier, more intense mixed use you're gonna see. The outer areas, as you go further out Burlington Mills Road, going on the opposite side of Rogers Road across from Heritage and out that direction, where the park is and everything, you're gonna probably see medium density predominantly. You may get a few spots of commercial on Rogers Road. You may get a request to put a full small pocket, and that will probably be handled through a form-based code option. The suburban form-based code option. It won't be handled through a PUD, and it won't be the medium density residential itself, because that is exclusively residential. In some of these areas, there's people going to want exclusively residential. They would not want commercial right up against them. So those are the kind of matching the comp plan to be the holding district, but it doesn't prevent the opportunity to partnership with development with the potential of putting commercial with a form-based code option, which would give you more flexibility.
Okay, I think Stat's gonna listen now for a moment.
Yes, I'm listening.
We've kind of told you to roll the planning. I'm very interested, Sheila, to go back to you, please. And did we answer anything or not where you are on this?
I don't know, thoroughly confused. So I don't even know how to phrase it anymore. The only thing I will say, and I'm gonna be done with this, the brown part or burgundy, whatever that color is on the, where it says commercial and industrial zoning map, the one I guess after this. Yeah, that burgundy-ish part is mixed use. And when I think the point, there's some designated land for commercial already, correct? When I look at that, I don't know that. Do you see what I'm saying? So if I'm looking at this and you're telling me it's mixed use, I don't know what portion has been designated for commercial. So that's why I don't see any red on there, but apparently there is some set aside there.
Those
And I think
funds that have already been done, is that what you're asking about, Sheila?
I can't hear you.
The
Say that
ones that are already PUDs that have commercial, are those the ones you're asking about?
I think it's only that one is the point, if I'm correct. I'm not sure though. But yes, that's what I'm.
I was wondering about those myself, where those fall on here.
Well, I think your other issue is you have a lot of stuff that says mixed use neighborhood. So when you see neighborhood, you think houses.
Right.
So I think that kind of needs to be cleaned up. If it has a different designation, if I'm a developer and I see mixed use neighborhood and I'm a commercial developer, I don't feel like I'm going to look at those areas because I feel like that's going to be a neighborhood just because of the way it's designated.
But then are the different of mixed use, Paul, too, though. So it's just us. There's some gap in communication and what Danny and Julie are telling us and what we're perceiving as being what makes sense to us. So I kind of disagree with what you're saying, but I understand what you're saying from the perspective that we're working on now.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it looks like, Danny, that some of the commercial that we approved is not showing up in red. For example, I was thinking at the high school, there's a piece there. There's a piece in the point that Sheila just mentioned, that's not red.
I don't think, is this updated, Danny?
It is updated, and I do recall we discussed that, and they said, let's keep it residential on that side. It was already designated before I got here with the comp plan that was in the works. The only thing that I got involved was the business part. Everything else is exactly what you saw when I got here in January 30th of 2017 that had been done with the comp plan at that point. And
how do we better reflect that, though? What can we do? Because if there's 5 of us here still struggling with that, how do we better reflect that this includes commercial? By definition, many know that, but I'm really not saying either.
That track I pointed out to them was identified as commercial, and the discussion was we'll leave that residential on that side because it's the high school. Mm-hmm. It does not change the zoning classification. And I don't foresee that we're going to go with the LDO and the new zoning map switch it over to residential. We'll keep it commercial. As it's shown on there, you see it on the left.
Yeah, you do see it on the left, and it's left off for the right. So I'm kind of wondering any consistency there, if there is any.
Yes, it is. I remember that. There was a question about it, but then it was just a discussion to the planning board and others that said, we already dealt with that before you came here. And I said, okay, I didn't push it.
Danny,
Yes, sir.
given the way the statute has been revised and interpreted, when we adopt zoning decisions that are inconsistent with the comp plan the way it is, the comp plan is automatically updated. Would it make sense as a staff matter that the map reflect those changes so as to avoid these inconsistencies when someone comes along and takes a look?
And that is something we'll have to discuss when we get to the zoning map of the LDO, that we got to deal with the consistency. That is a good point, David. That is mandated by 160D. And these are all good discussions. I think I'm hearing a lot. I think Julie and I are hearing a lot to work with our consultant to talk about the importance of getting the mix of commercial with the residential. And in these mixed use neighborhoods that we got identified in the comp plan, how do we facilitate getting the leverage of getting that commercial activity occurring, that where we're not just putting everything residential and then we'd have no commercial opportunities, available land out there.
Just clarifying, how do you know what's commercial within a mixed use? I still don't know that. And maybe I'm the only one confused, but if I'm looking.
Let us work on that issue. We hear your concern, and let us refine that as we work with the consultant to make that clear with you. And also, how are we going to be zoning it?
Even if it had some stripes on it, some red, some lines, something to designate the difference of this is
Just
commercial.
remember, whatever you put on the map, you have to live with it without having to go through another legislative public hearing to change it. So we got to use some, you got to be thinking of what you're doing is exactly what you want to get.
I'm talking about ones, Danny, I mean ones that's already been designated within that mixed use. The mixed use is a blob. I'm just trying
It is a blob. It is a blob.
It's a blob.
It does not have defined borders. Your point is you want a little bit more specifics to get the mix of commercial with the residential. You don't want that blob to be nothing but residential, particularly on that South Main Street combination of the bypass area down there on South Main Street, the gay property, which is that big piece on the north, the Starbur and various other landowners. And of course, there's the church down there that they want to put commercial adjacent to them.
So Danny, just to help my confused mind on this, so for example, the Point, is that a mixed use actually? Is that what you call a mixed use?
It was a small mixed use in consideration, but that was already legislated before the comp plan. That was designated a PUD before the comp plan, and it was residential.
Yeah, and that's what's confused me. That's what's confused me.
It was residential in the old plan, and when we move forward, we say, well, we want to encourage this because we were still looking at the old plan that was there, that there's opportunity to get commercial. And of course, the reality is when it got down to interest of buying the property and development, the commercial interest was not that strong. And the area designated in the PUD, which is about 15, 16 acres on the corner up there beyond Quarry Road, going up to the bypass, is where you're going to see the commercial.
Yeah,
The
I think
the rest of it's residential. Now, you also have interest of doing a combination of commercial and residential on the other track that's in that mixed use development that you'll see sometime soon.
so with the new rollout, something like the PUD is not considered mixed usage then. Mixed usage is gonna be more like what Julie described a few minutes ago. It'll have, commercial with bottom and residential over top type things. So I think that's what's confusing to me on this chart is you got that big blob of the point in there that's really not mixed use as what you say in the future mixed use is going to be.
It would be more like that suburban form-based code.
Well, I thought I heard it would be more like scale down, more like the town center.
It'd be a
Right.
scale down of the town center. You won't see
Right.
high rise on it. You may see apartments with 2 or 3 stories. You may see, I doubt you'll see too many commercials above residential. You possibly could, but you're going to see a lot of single-story commercial. And it'll be
Right.
along the main road. It won't be back in the interior of the property.
And it'd be mixed in there somewhat.
That's right. Probably commercial in the front, residential go into the back. But that's not the point. The point is developed based upon the original similar plan unit development design by
Well,
the, by-
should we point off of this chart then? It says it's mixed use neighborhood.
right.
Or mixed,
And the intent there was keep it flexible. There was opportunity to get more, but it just didn't happen.
right.
It just didn't happen.
'Cause
Okay, can I ask a question?
I think another thing, Danny, is I think a mixed use being built at the same time. And that's not what proposed at the point. It's some kind of future commercial.
Yeah, because you're gonna have the situation, you're gonna have a residential developer wanting to come in and do the residential. And you go try to get a commercial developer and they say, well, we just don't see the market there yet. To go put that in yet. So that's where we gotta talk about incentives or opportunities to partner to get the commercial in some of these locations.
Yeah, I think you had a question, April.
I do, and I'm sure that it's in front of me, but let me just ask my question. So the lands that have been PUDs thus far at the Redford Place and the Point and all of those, on this map, is that land, even though it has not been built out, still marked as commercial? Or is it all in the mixed use?
The only commercial in the yellow on the left was identified within the plan unit development design saying there's residential mixed use in that district. And they are very small pockets. With the village, it's the property behind Food Line. Until you get to the entrance of the village, that's designated as RM, the residential mixed use. And that one little tract there, Julie, I don't know if you can point it out. That one little tract up there at the intersection of Quarry Road across from the high school, that not the big one, but the smaller one getting closer to the bypass in the yellow, right there, that's commercial. And that's the only commercial within the PUD that fits into the mixed use.
So the land that is commercial, that was in the original PUD behind Food Lion, that is now in residential mixed use, that can be either residential or commercial and does not have to be commercial if someone comes along to build on it again.
It's currently regulated by the PUD approval as office and retail.
So even with the change,
However, I have to disclose this clearly, the comp plan identified it as high density residential.
Mr. Mayor, let me make a comment if I might. We are getting nowhere and it's taken us a long time to get nowhere. We've been on this topic almost an hour and a half. This is a workshop topic that we need to get together. I think Danny and Julie have heard our concerns and can work to address it, but this is something that the commissioners, the mayor, and the town manager need to get together on a workshop and talk about how to do what we want to do.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Appreciate that. We we are getting long-winded here. So, Julie, Danny, did you finish your presentation?
Yes, I'm done.
Yep. You guys have anything else to present? You done, Julie?
I am done.
Okay. Kelly, I think we should have some good notes on this, maybe.
Yeah, I understand where to go, and we will have, the good news is I'm glad we worked on this tonight because we had time between now and February 26th to work on this. And there will be time spent on this on our February 26th. And I think you'll like our proposal because I have some things that, ideas, I think our consultant can work on this. So we will hopefully hit the target as based upon tonight's video. So
Okay.
thanks.
Right.
Sounds good. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Julie.
Julie, go ahead and release this. Yeah.
Okay, next item, Robin, if you would let the Wake County staff in the room. All right. I see them available. So tonight we have 3 Wake County staff members participating in the next 2 items. The first item is a review of the PLANWake comprehensive plan, which we just spent our time on discussing ours. Now we're going to hear about where Wake County is going with theirs. And then we'll move in and transition into a new interlocal agreement that we have developed with Wake County on their planning, build, review, and inspections. And participate in this discussion is, I lost my participants. I'm going to ask the county folks to introduce themselves. They're in the room.
Okay, I'll go ahead. I'm Terry Nolan. I'm in the long range planning section with Wake County Planning, Development, and Inspections.
And thank you, Mr. Mayor and board members for having us. I'm Tim Maloney. I'm the director of Wake County Planning, Development, and Inspections. And I'll let Greg Vance, our inspections director, introduce him later on when we get to that item. But I'll do a quick introduction and then hand it off to Terry to go through the slides. And we can tell you've had a long meeting, and so we'll be as brief as we can on our end. But certainly, we want to hear from you on any feedback that you have. We've been working on the county's comprehensive plan for over 18 months now. The pandemic has certainly slowed our efforts in this. We have presented this to our Board of Commissioners back in November, and as a draft. And with their approval, we are seeking some final public comment by meeting with stakeholders, community leaders such as yourselves, to get that final round of feedback with the intention of tidying up the plan and bringing a final back to our board in the February timeframe for final adoption. I can imagine that most of your interest tonight might be as it relates to Little River and the reservoir and the watershed. So we're certainly open to questions of that, but I will tell you we were intentional not to stray at all from the policies that surround the reservoir at this time, particularly to those policies about extension of water and sewer. Those are conversations that will come at a deeper level when we talk about area land use plans, which Terry will touch upon at this, and with the hopes of having a deeper conversation about how and if more municipal development could occur within the watershed. So I'm gonna stop there and hand it over to Terry to walk through these slides. And again, please feel free to ask questions as we go along.
Okay, first I just wanted to confirm that everyone can see my screen. Okay, thank you, Tim.
Yes.
All right. So as Tim mentioned, we're wrapping up our almost 2-year process of a comprehensive kind of high-level policy plan to guide the Wake County's growth over the next decade. What we're looking at is, with the county growing so rapidly, these are kind of the key questions. With rapid growth, how do we provide enough residential units? How do we accommodate all the extra trips that are going to be made with the population growth? So these are sort of the key questions that we need to try and address, at least at a high level, through this comprehensive plan. So we did a lot of work before COVID hit, a lot of face-to-face work too, and a series of surveys to help get really good input. And what it boiled down to is that there were mainly 4 key community preferences that people said over and over again in a variety of ways. Number 1, that significant change is needed to plan for growth. And people are saying that we need to fundamentally do things differently. Second, people want to protect open space and natural areas. People want to see growth directed to towns. And then lastly, people want to see a variety of walkable environments. And walkable can mean, some different things depending on the context. But we got really, really good feedback through a series of surveys, and we feel pretty good about the direction that we're headed here. So the plan is made up of basically 3 components. I'll talk most about the map and what that means for the municipalities. But the plan is made up of some just high-level key vision outcomes, the development framework map, and then annual performance measures. So most comprehensive plans tend to be a combination of different plans put together. This is really more of a guiding document that does talk about the importance of all of these components within a comprehensive plan. So, we're thinking of the plan as comprehensive and touching on all of these separate topics and making sure that we understand that they are all interrelated. So the 3 vision outcomes is that Wake County will be inclusive and equitable, healthy and active, and sustainable and vibrant. And we mean to see those outcomes in sort of a comprehensive manner in terms of, with our transportation systems, public health, all of those things. We want to see the county is growing intentionally, and we want to see we want to make sure that the costs and benefits are spread equitably across the county. So getting into the development framework map, I'll talk a little bit about kind of what these categories mean, but our draft plan, which has been released, has kind of a better description of what these categories are and what's the character and density that we're kind of looking at. So transit focus areas are the highest density of all of the categories, and it's mainly focused around the planned bus rapid transit that is planned for Raleigh, Garner, and Cary. The walkable centers shown in the purple are areas of investment, redevelopment, development, the mixed use walkable areas that you were talking about earlier this evening. Around downtown areas, and then important transportation nodes, both current and in the future. You can see that walkable centers are planned or anticipated with the interchanges at the future 540 interchanges, that we see those areas as opportunities for mixed use and walkable centers. Community, which is shown in the tan, are really sort of the fabric of the community, those neighborhoods, neighborhood commercial, really, the main areas that are municipal. So the community areas are all of your current corporate areas, plus your ETJ, plus those areas that we anticipate to be served with public utilities within the next 5 to 10 years. And we worked very closely with our municipal staff, Roseville staff, and all of the municipalities to try and determine what areas are most likely to be served with public utilities and annexed into municipalities. I'm going to skip over community reserve because it's easier to talk about rural first. The rural areas are areas of agriculture and working lands, and areas of a lot of natural resources. And they are areas that are not anticipated to be served with public utilities within the near future. Now you can see that some of the green areas have a hatching. Those areas show where we have our water supply watersheds. And, you know, the intention there is, Tim Maloney mentioned, is to not really change the way that we approach the water supply watersheds. Those are intended to remain in the county's jurisdiction and really continue to be low density areas in order to protect the water supply. And then lastly is that kind of light green color. Those are kind of an in-between community and rural. Community reserve are areas that are maybe not seeing as much development pressure and may not be served, very easily with public utilities, but are certainly seeing development pressure. And, you know, we want to acknowledge that they may be needed for municipalities in the near future, depending on, you know, how things are changing. This map shows the municipal planning jurisdictions grayed out, and really what this map is meant to demonstrate, anything that is not in gray is within the county's planning jurisdiction within this development framework map. And a lot of that is in green, and that's really on the county to create policies that support those rural areas. But then there are also areas in yellow, light green, and purple. And those are areas where we want to work with the municipalities so that if there is a proposed development, that that we work with municipalities to try and ensure to the best of our ability that they develop with municipality, you know, under the municipality's jurisdiction, connect to public utilities and be served and annexed into those municipalities, regardless of whether the proposed development is within your current ETJ or not. What we really want to do is try and push that development to the municipalities and try and facilitate that development under municipal standards, because municipalities are better equipped to provide the things that people are saying that they want. Municipalities are better at providing a range of housing choices and other opportunities. Just real quick, I wanted to go through the performance metrics. These are intended to be reported on annually, and there are sort of three categories, just generally. Countywide, we want to sort of see how we're doing in terms of how's this new direction affecting things like travel, housing, our open space goal, and incomes and prosperity. We also have some targets for how we want to see new development shift into those municipalities. We want to see fewer subdivisions occurring in the county's jurisdiction because, you know, our subdivisions are low density on, you know, well and septic, and they really don't provide the opportunities that people are looking for. So we'd like to see fewer county subdivisions. And then we have some kind of general targets for what we'd like to see in terms of, you know, how much of that development is shifting towards those other colors, community, walkable centers, and so forth.
So Terry, how will you accomplish fewer county subdivision approvals?
So that's going to be a combination of tools, probably, in terms of providing more incentives for that development to go to the municipalities, and perhaps looking at our development standards to disincentivize the county subdivisions. We might need to think a little bit more about some of the things that we're asking for in these developments. You know, municipalities require transportation improvements, which makes sense. The county typically does not. So in some ways, we've made it a little too easy to develop in the county.
That's true. Also, you know, it's a limit of what can be put in our ETJs for the city towns too. And once you do that, then we have control and the county don't. But it's a lot of that you just identified that we can't put in our ETJs, and the county controls it and approve these subdivisions with wells and septics. And
then, so lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about our targeted population working performance metrics. These are really looking at certain populations that are vulnerable and wanting to make sure that we're watching to make sure that, you know, the direction that we're going isn't hurting vulnerable populations. So during the last couple of months, when we haven't been able to meet face to face, we've been looking a little bit more at these high level policies and talking with, you know, talking through how we're gonna carry over some of these things. I'll talk a little bit about urban service areas, but talk a little bit more about ETJ's extraterritorial jurisdiction, because it directly affects what you do. So you may have seen this map before. This was drawn a long time ago to really kind of carve out who gets what in the county. And while the short range and long range urban service areas are a little bit outdated, we would really be looking towards that development framework map to look at, to consider sort of readiness for municipal development. Those boundaries that define sort of the long range planning areas for the municipalities, those are still valid and those are still going to remain in place.
Question, Terry, if you go back to that slide.
Sure.
Those lines you see are agreements between the municipalities, which we call our boundaries, our annexation boundaries. And if you look at, and I've never understood this, if you look at the one for Raleigh and Roseville, that's south, put your pointer south of it, and you'll see a yellow line that goes down through there that's supposed to be a separation between Raleigh and Roseville. And on the right side, it's colored Raleigh side, and as future land use, and that's I don't understand that.
And I don't have an answer for that. I mean, the agreements.
You see where I'm talking about?
I do, yes.
See the yellow line, the boundary line?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you know, the agreements that you have with adjoining municipalities, you know, the county really doesn't have a role in negotiating those. I think we play just you know, as a convener and participant in those discussions perhaps, but we don't, we're not active in those agreements. That's really between you and your neighbors. You know, this map just generally shows, you know, that the areas that you have long considered your long range planning areas will continue to be valid and be in place into the future within kind of this new PLANWake framework. So you may be aware that state law enables extraterritorial jurisdiction, that the state legislation is really looking at at things like density and readiness. And, you know, it's the counties that grant ETJ to municipalities. So we wanted to give our ETJ criteria kind of a refresh. Most of the changes aren't very major, but we understand that ETJ is important because it allows municipalities to plan for the future and to have, you know, to be in charge of what happens within the areas around them. And so, you know, we have some criteria that is currently in the current land use plan, and so we wanted to make sure that those criteria carried over into the new plan, that they got kind of a refresh based on, you know, changes to state law, as well as just some lessons learned, especially in the last few years. So with our criteria, what we want to try and do is encourage smaller and more focused requests. The state law determines how much a municipality can ask for, depending on population, how far out you can go with your ETJ request. We want to work with municipalities and plan for those ETJ changes in order to have a smoother, less controversial process and have a good outcome. Our board wants to be able to say yes. the requests must align with our development framework map, meaning that if you're asking for ETJ, it should be in the purple colors, those walkable centers, or the yellow colors, the community areas. If you are asking for rural areas, we would require a land use plan amendment to PLANWake before the ETJ request could move forward. So our current criteria sort of judges municipalities on how well they've annexed the ETJ that they've had. Given state law changes and that you can't forcibly annex, we just took that out. You will not be judged on how well you're annexing your ETJ. And then lastly, we wanted to sort of update, you know, what are we looking for? We're not just looking for, is a municipality planning for and getting ready to extend public utilities, but also other services like trash collection. Communities have been doing a really great job of community engagement with their ETJ requests. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that and formalize it. And then lastly, and this is very general, we still need a lot of discussion on this one, but we want to also consider how well municipalities are working with the county to achieve the county-wide goals within PLANWake. Now, how that's going to play out is still yet to be determined. Whether that's a simple, you know, checklist and how, you know, are we working together on these county-wide issues, yet to be determined. Municipal transition standards. We want to formalize a process and policy that encourages those areas to become municipal. So when a development proposal comes into our office, we want to have a process in place for how are we working with the municipality? What are we looking for in terms of how we can direct that to the municipality. So we've been working with municipal staff on how we can sort of create a process for that communication, that back and forth. And then lastly, this is our schedule. We took this plan to our Board of Commissioners back in November for their okay. And so the draft has been up for public comment since November. We've been talking to people and giving lots of presentations, and we'll continue to do that. But the first opportunity for a public hearing and consideration of approval will be in February of this year. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think Tim Maloney is still on the line.
Hey, Tim, this is Kelly. During this process, we've talked, Roseville staff has talked with Wake County staff about the rural and the, I can't remember the other transition, the lighter green transition. And you had talked about after adoption of this plan, there's going to be identification of areas where there will be area plans put together or discussions. Is that still possible if Roseville wants to focus on some of the area around Roseville on some specific area plans?
Absolutely. And forgive me, my internet connection is unstable right now. So if I go out, it's because of that. But yes, Kelly, you're correct. We do plan on identifying and prioritizing areas for small land use plans in collaboration with some of the towns. Yes.
So, board, I think as you look at this and as it gets adopted, we'll want to engage and talk about with the county our interest in taking that offer up and seeing how we would want to proceed on those discussions.
Correct. And I do want to circle back to the mayor's question. We'll take a closer look at your annexation boundary agreements and your USA's urban service areas and follow up with any information to help clarify through Kelly.
Great, I appreciate that.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, Terry, thank you very much for your very good presentation. And board, I would encourage you, if you have any comments, go online. It's all online. You can make comments still if you're interested, or if something comes up, direct them to me and I can make those comments as we get closer to the commissioners considering this in February. With that in mind, Tim, why don't you walk us through the next item, which is the interlocal agreement for inspections.
Sure, I'll do that. And I also have another staff member with me this evening, Greg Vance. He is the director of Wake County's Permits and Inspections Division, and he'll chime in as needed. But what we are proposing, well, let me back up and give you some context. State law allows towns such as yourself, agreement with the county that you're in, for the county to provide the building inspections and plan review relative to the state building code. Since the early 80s, several towns in Wake County have chosen to do that. Roseville is one of them. We also do that with the town of Wendell, the town of Knightdale, and the town of Zebulon. So we have 4 towns, and we call them our contract towns. We provide the resources, the expertise, and the services to review plans pertinent to building code, and then we go out and we inspect them. But you all on your end are actually issuing the permit. Those agreements, particularly the one with the town of Roseville, has been in place since the early 80s. And as you can imagine, things have evolved since that time. Statutes tend to change. And we felt it was appropriate to update those interlocal agreements with each individual town. We have shared that draft with Kelly and his staff and gone back and forth with attorneys on our end, on your end, and I think we're in a good place right now on our review. The ILA basically is going to supersede the ones that are in place right now. It doesn't change the scope of the services that the county provides to you. It really doesn't change anything on the surface. What it does do is reference current general statutes. It references and puts into place some of the procedures that have evolved in our relationship over time, how fees are collected, how we help you all in administering housing code, cash handling procedures on both ends, because there are times where you handle cash on behalf of the county. So it gets into those things. None of that was addressed in the agreements back in the early 80s. So we felt it was appropriate to address that. I'm hoping you can still hear me because I'm getting a message. My internet is unstable. So that's sort of the overview of it. Greg Vance is online as well to answer any technical questions you may have about the services we provide to you. I do want to say this. Wake County truly values the relationship that we've had over the decades in providing these services, not only to the Roseville, but the other 3 towns as well. And we hope that our staff is really just an extension of your staff. And it's important that we continue to foster that relationship. So I'll stop there. I don't know if Kelly wants to add anything to that or Danny wants to add anything to that.
I don't really have anything to add, board. We have worked on this for probably about the last 4 months. And we all agreement staff-wise on this captures the current operations and agreements. It has been reviewed by Dave, Neil, and so we are prepared to recommend that it gets placed on a next agenda for approval. But if you have any questions, it was in your packet. If there's anything specifically you want to talk about, we're here to answer that right now, if possible. Okay, seeing none, what I will do is put this on consent agenda. It's your prerogative to pull it off in the next agenda, but if you have any questions between now and February 2nd, please let myself know, and I will get with Tim and Greg to answer those. But again, I think we want to echo that the services that are provided by Wake County really have been beneficial. It's building inspection, as I say, is one of those services that can make or break a community many times. And when it's working well, it's working well. And if it's not working well, it's difficult on the community, particularly builders. From my perspective, being here the last 2.5 years and directly managing the building inspection departments in the past, and also having private outsourced building inspectors, I would say that we are in a good spot with Wake County. It is working well. So I want to thank Greg and Tim publicly for that. So,
Kelly,
any
I've
questions?
got one question.
Go ahead, Jackie.
As I look through it, it appears that the charges that we will incur and that we are incurring, we pass them on to the builders or the developers. So this is not really going to increase our budget in any way.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I'm fine. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Greg and Tim and board. You all can check out, I think, exit the room, and we'll move on to our next item. Robin, if you would bring in Betsy Watson next.
Kelly, I know it's 8 o'clock or right
Yep.
at 8 o'clock. So we've been going for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Let's 5-minute break and we'll come back at 8:05.
Okay. Sounds good.
So let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the next item.
Thank you, Mayor. So Michael, if you're okay, I'm just going to go ahead and lead off and introduce Betsy Watson. Betsy is our primary manager and overseer of the Main Street Design Project. Intimately involved for the last 2 years on this and has done a great job. Tonight, she is going to review with you, and it was in your packet, the recommendations for design elements on our Main Street project. We hope after tonight that we will take this input and start the design, continue to work through the design, but put these recommendations into what we're going from transition. We're starting to transition, I believe, Betsy, from 25% design all the way up to 75% design. And Betsy might touch a little bit on that, but over the next 2 to 3 months, you'll see a lot of activity, continued activity on Main Street as far as some surveying for right-of-way acquisitions and such. But this will be really the important conversation of the touch and feel and look of Main Street. So Betsy, with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Certainly. Thanks, Kelly. Just a quick check to make sure you can hear me.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you. Mind if I share my screen? Okay. Let's see. Can you all see a streetscape elements basically? No? Okay. Let's see.
Now we can.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Okay, so like Kelly said, I'm Betsy Watson, and thank you for having me here tonight. It's good to be in front of you all again. Look forward to when we can get back in person. But tonight, as Kelly said, I'm here to present the results of the survey that you all put out on, Stantec prepared, but you all put out on your website, and it closed in early December. And we got some really great feedback and actually a really great level of public participation. There were a total of 917 respondents, which is really good. So to me, that just speaks to the level of engagement and hopefully the level of excitement for this project from the people of Rolesville. Okay, so we'll jump right in. The first survey question was about the Main Street median treatment options, and we asked folks to rank 5 options. So numbers 2, and 3 were in a tie for the public second most requested preference. So basically and what I'll do tonight is present what the results of the survey, but also present what we have, the landscape architect, Amanda Morrill, and I have then come up with as recommendations based on the survey results, comments we got, and also where we think this fits within the budget. So on this question, our design recommendation is actually a blend of options 1, 2, and 3, since these were close results. We want to incorporate large boulders and native plants. And based on sight lines and safety, we would incorporate only small clusters of ornamental trees in the median. We definitely can't put just evenly spaced trees in the median because it would prevent the view of certain movements making lefts. And it's just we also have to watch out for median widths and making sure the canopy doesn't encroach into travel lanes and things like that. But we are going to try and come up with a few specific locations just for some small clusters, again, of the ornamental trees. This is also, the medians present, Amanda, our landscape architect, who couldn't be here tonight, apologies, but she had a really neat idea about a possible partnership on annual color. She says, investigate partnership on annual color. And what she means by that is wanted to get the town's thoughts, and you can either chime in now or at the end or later, but wanted to get the town's thoughts on a potential civic group, garden club, or Rotary group being kind of taking ownership and being responsible for just a couple areas of the seasonal plantings, which are the highest maintenance, but also provide some of the sort of prettiest color and more formal areas. And we're not talking a lot. We're just talking about maybe leaving 2 or a couple areas that we call, pockets for seasonal color. And so that's an opportunity for the public to kind of be involved and have some ownership in the design and in the maintaining of the plantings. So that's just some food for thought for you all. But basically the median treatments are going to be a combination of these first 3 things that you see based on the survey results. On each question also, Amanda has put together what's called a Wordle, W-O-R-D-L-E. So basically this Wordle is where she's shown words that came up a lot in the public responses. And so the larger the word, the more times it came up. So we've got things like native plants, of course, maintenance is a concern. You see that being a big word, boulders, decorative. And then she's put together some of the kind of representative comments. Like these are just a couple of comments, but she felt like they represented a lot of what the public had to say. So in favor of including annual color, but love the idea of incorporating stones and boulders. This is a big area for granite. And then a lot of comments about native plants and how they're important for wildlife and pollinators in the environment. So definitely a desire for native plants. So again, we're looking at a combination of some formal plantings and seasonal color, possibly with partnership, native plantings, but also incorporating some stones and boulders. So those are the median treatments. Then we get into the options for the intersection of Main at Young and the public realm. So this survey question was about lighting. And on this one, there was a clear winner, a clear preference with almost half the votes for kind of a traditional pedestrian lamp with hanging planters. And not just planters, but banners are actually, this is a great place for banners that could be interchangeable, but possibly also in lieu of the planters. But here we do plan to proceed with, because this was such a clear winner, with a traditional looking pedestrian lamp. And we will be somewhat constrained by what type of pedestrian street lights that the utility providers offer. And so we have got some contact names for them, and forthcoming we'll be contacting them and try to get a kind of some cut sheets so that we know exactly what those will look like. While this ambient lighting was not the winner.
That's a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Those lights, are they in one particular area, or are they complete from the whole main street, from one end to the other? Where are they located?
These, I believe, will be mostly at the intersection with Young, but if I'm not mistaken, I think they will be at some regular intervals along Main. I would have to look into that answer for you, actually. I may be able to look at something really quick. And if I can't find the answer to that real quick, then I can take that down and get back to you. Let's see.
Okay.
Yes, pedestrian streetlights. No, we originally counted for a quantity of 66. They are along Main, heading into town toward Young. Yes. And not
I
just
think-
at the intersection.
I think electrical providers change along Main Street, Kelly, so keep that in mind. Because I guess it'd be 2 providers.
Kelly let us know that. So we have a contact for Duke right now, but haven't got a contact name yet for Wake Electric. So what we want to do is contact both of them and kind of get some options or catalog cuts or photos of what they have available. And our hope is that we're going to find something that looks a lot alike from each provider.
Good.
While the ambient lighting was not the winner, a lot of people did comment that they think something like this has a really great feel. And Amanda and I were thinking that maybe when you're coordinating with the developers of Cobblestone, I know they have some kind of public realm or event spaces within that development, but possibly maybe that's something that they could incorporate, or that we could talk with them about possibly incorporating as part of Cobblestone. So again, our design recommendation is the traditional pedestrian lamp and a potential banner location. And some of the little things on the wordle are, safety. Of course, that's a big concern. We had a comment that ambient lighting could give life to our little town. Imagine it would be nice to feel like we can have a nice night out downtown just around the corner. And then somebody said I like a combination of all 3. So, but definitely the traditional pedestrian lamps were the winner there. Okay. This question is about a hardscape option on the downtown sidewalks. And this is going to be not just sidewalks, but really those public realm spaces at the intersection of Main at Young. And you'll recall that the way that a couple of the buildings have angled fronts, that there are some rather large spaces in those areas. So it's not just sidewalks, it's kind of our public realm at those quadrants at Main at Young that are going to be in front of Susanna's Antiques and Rolesville Furniture. So the question was about what kind of hardscape, what's actually going to be under people's feet. And here, while this option C was actually the winner by a little bit, the comments that we got suggested that this exact thing is not really going to fit the bill, because we had a lot of comments that we agree with about strollers, wheelchairs, high heels, tripping hazards, wanted to make sure this is safe for all users, including elderly and everyone. So option A got a lot of votes. And based on kind of the votes that we got, plus some comments that we got, Amanda was actually thinking that rather than A or C, we would go with something that might look a little more like this, which is not exactly like this, but you see the ashlar pattern, which is kind of a random stone pattern. And this could be granite or possibly a stamped concrete that looks like granite. It wouldn't be exactly this. We would want to make sure that, again, the surfaces of the actual that people will be walking don't have too much relief and wouldn't have a trip hazard. So given that this is a little bit of a new direction that we're going in, Amanda has reached out to some of her contacts and at some stone centers, and I think she may still have some people that she's waiting to get in touch with. But her goal is to try and find a North Carolina supplier for this stone, which kind of brings us true, so it's more of a, true to local roots. And I think that seemed important to the people with the results of this survey. So this will vary some based on exactly what's available. So I think that this hardscape element is going to be an element where Stantec has a little bit more homework to do, and needs to show you kind of the options that we come up with based on what we find is available. So if that makes sense. So it's not Not even though C was the winner, again, our comments told us that this is not, we're not going to exactly go with that. So our design recommendation is for large format granite pavers in an ashlar pattern, which is that kind of random pattern with tight joints. Tight joints meaning not so big that a high heel is going to get stuck in them, or a stroller is going to, or wheelchair is going to, provide a kind of a bumpy surface. And granite curbing is included, which is really just for, mostly for aesthetics. It's going to look really nice at the intersection of Main and Young. And again, our wordle when it came to those hardscape and sidewalk options, we have, of course, maintenance, but you see words like wheelchairs, that actually comes up a few times. Natural history, wanting to honor the history of Rolesville and the stone. Tripping, I think somewhere we had women and heels and hazards. So that's definitely important to people. And I agree. We've got some neat comments. I feel like granite pavers goes along with the theme Roseville can embrace and have a more natural look, but still pleasing to the eye. Granite reflects the history of the town well. Okay, survey question number 4 was about street trees. And we had a clear winner here for option 1 with street trees with low plantings. So here our design recommendation is street trees with low plantings. Quantity will be limited based on intersection design. And so what we mean there is basically these will be certainly larger type of trees than some of the smaller or low canopy ones that might be in the medians. So they're going to have to be placed very strategically. We're going to look at sight distance. We're going to make sure they don't obstruct the view of cars who are approaching the intersection. We don't want them to obstruct the view of their ability to see a pedestrian that's crossing either in front of them or on the adjacent street, like if they're making a right turn. We need to make sure that any street trees do not obstruct the view of vehicles who want to make a right on red at the intersection. They'd be looking to their left. So we're going to look with all that. And we know we want trees to provide shade, but we also don't want the whole and to shade the entire area. We want some sunlight to get through. So all that being to say that at Main at Young, we're not going to have just a ton of street trees. They're going to be very strategically placed. And that's what we mean by quantity will be limited based on intersection design. Ensure underground root space. So because this intersection has so much work going on and it's basically kind of a redesign, we have opportunity to put facilities under the sidewalk and under the pavement that will allow for root growth, because we want those trees to reach their potential. And if they're going to be shade trees, we want them to be able to grow big and do their intended job and provide some shade. And on that question, some things that people said are, fencing, trees, street trees with landscaping and traditional fencing would add so much, functional and attractive. So that's some of the comments that we got on the trees. Okay, and I believe this is our last question. We had a question on downtown seating options. We had a clear winner of some kind of traditional steel benches. So our design recommendation is benches, and if budget allows, support the purchase of movable tables or chairs for businesses to experiment with. So that's kind of, you see that option A did get 33% of votes, and we got some comments about movable tables and chairs. So our thought was, if there's budget for it, or if the town comes up with budget for it, and this is something that can easily be removed from the project if, at any time, if you want to go this route. But the thought was, if you just get, say, 4 sets of tables and chairs like this, kind of see how it goes. See if, on day 1, you're not going to have a coffee shop or a cupcake shop necessarily, but maybe people will get a coffee at McDonald's and decide to either drive it down to Main at Young, or walk down and just kind of take a seat and people watch and enjoy the new streetscaping and, see if they have a friend or neighbor come by. So it's kind of almost like a give it a try thing, but that's definitely not something that has to be part of the project. That was just part of our thoughts based on some of the feedback, and there seemed to be some interest in that. get to the, let's see, some things that people, oh, and there is one more question after that. I'm sorry, I fibbed. But some comments on the benches that people had. I envisioned Rolesville being a small town where families can take a stroll through the town, grab something to eat, find a common area to enjoy food and company. And it says movable tables and chairs would best suit these purposes. So that's, you know, again, that's part of why we thought that if, you know, we can sustain, if the budget can sustain it, it would be fun just kind of for an experiment. And again, someone said a combination of all three would be nice. But certainly the steel benches were the winner, and those will be the ones that will be procured as actual permanent fixtures as part of the project. This is our last question, sorry. Question 6 was about a planter option. And we practically had some ties here. It was very close. A and C, we feel like emerged as the winners, both in the survey votes and also in some comments that we got. So here our design recommendation will be for bollard planters, which is these, you see the bollards with planters in them, and concrete or granite planters, which is this one. You can have either, you can have a concrete that kind of looks like granite, so it might save some money, but granite is obviously being true to, a little more truer to the Roseville granite. The potential to combine into a reinforced concrete planter and alternate traditional bollards and planters. So we could actually alternate, you know, look at our design and see where it makes sense. But basically we're looking at having some combination of A and C. And some comments that we got here talked about these bollards and planters having the kind of, not only are they aesthetic, but the added benefit of some safety for the pedestrians. And I agree with this, it's a feeling of separation that an errant car is not just gonna hop the curb, whether on purpose or accidentally. And it provides some, you know, visual separation for the pedestrian. But certainly we want to consider sight distance and not have anything too big or bulky that's going, again, like the trees, nothing that's going to obstruct sight lines where we need them. So again, one person's comment was, I get worried about safety on the streets with recent events of cars intentionally running over pedestrians. Bollards offer great protection. Myself as a traffic engineer, I worry about distracted drivers and people who are unintentionally doing that, or possibly intentionally hopping the curb just to park or double park, you know, to load or something. We want to discourage that, certainly. New and colorful additions will add to the beauty and serenity of the area. So those were the 6 questions on the survey. Again, we had some really great feedback and participation from the public. We were really happy to see that. I think too that when Amanda and I went through these options, we feel good about that the budget is going to be within what we budgeted in the fall of 2019, which we used for our basis for design, which we made some assumptions there, but we're definitely going to have some trade-offs. At that time, we had planned on a lot of median trees in the median spaced at regular intervals, and we now realize that we can't have quite that many because of sight distance and things like that. So we feel good that these trade-offs are going to get us within and be true to our original, what we originally budgeted. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. Now, I will say I'm not, you know, our landscape architect couldn't be with us, so I might struggle a little if you have questions about actual plantings and specific fixtures. But like Kelly said, I pretty much know everything going on the project and been on it for a couple of years, so we'll definitely do my best to answer any questions.
I did want to add one thing. You were talking about the small area in the median. We actually do have a community gardeners club of Rolesville, so I'm sure they would be definitely interested in that.
Do you think that would be, do they have kind of a budget of their own, or do you think that's something that it might be that if the town provided them with either the plants or money to buy plants, would there be a town participation, or do you think they have a large enough kind of established group that do they have their own budget, or is that something kind of to be determined?
Yeah, something to be determined, but we could definitely talk to them.
Yeah, TBD. Okay. I think it's a very meritable idea. Whether the town does or some civic group, I like the civic aspect, but I also like dedicated planting areas.
Yeah.
So I would recommend we proceed and then work on who and how for a later date.
Agree.
Wonderful. No, I was, and when Amanda mentioned that, I was pretty excited about that. I hadn't thought of it, but I think to me, it's so just a way more for the community to really, I mean, the survey in itself is a way that for the community to have ownership of this project. But certainly with them maintaining a couple of these plant pockets, and certainly it would be manageable areas. I think Amanda was thinking of maybe two areas that we would reserve for the local participation. But I just think it's a great way for the Rolesville residents to have ownership of this is going to be their Main Street. This will be y'all's Main Street.
Okay, so speak now, everybody, because this will be, after this, we will turn these into design. So any other questions? Betsy, I think we talked, there will be a visit by you when we get to the 75% design, kind of an update on the project, final kind of look at all this. Is that what you're proposing at some point?
Yes, that would be great. Right now we are, of course, earlier you alluded to the fact that we were recently at 25% design stage. Of course, that's just a number that we sort of assigned to a milestone, but we're certainly much more, more like 50 or 60% in design. So our next milestone that is coming up is called 75%, where we will have some hydraulic design added, pavement marking, and the upgrade of some ADA ramps along Main Street as part of a complete project. And also a next step that I wanted to mention is we are developing a concept for the maintenance of both vehicular and pedestrian traffic at the intersection of Main at Young. As you know, that's going to be very impactful during construction. And we've been saying that for, definitely have engaged property owners so that Mr. Edens and Mr. Privet and others down there know that this is going to be very impactful during construction. But at some point, probably in March, we would like to engage those stakeholders and give them an idea of what that's going to look like and take their feedback as to specific needs they have for what doors they need people to get into and where they take deliveries and things like that. So that's also a next step, Kelly.
I just want to clarify, this is Sheila. Will the wayfinding signage that we have be incorporated in this design?
We're definitely going to take into account the new wayfinding signing that's existing right now that you guys have recently implemented.
Yes.
Yes, so we're going to take account of where that is and make sure that any of our, basically Stantec is doing the signing for the project that's required by a DOT. So there's mostly speed limit signs, any warning signs, and things like that. So what we do is inventory where your wayfinding is and make sure that we're not spacing anything too close to one of your wayfinding signs or anything like that. I don't think anything we're doing will necessitate a need to modify any of your wayfinding signs. But if there is, we'll coordinate with you on that. So we definitely want to make sure that they're not, that they're not disturbed and that we don't put one of our signs right in front of one of those nice new wayfinding signs.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Mayor. Well, sensing that we've had a good presentation and maybe the questions have been asked. And again, board, if you have something in the near future that you saw that triggers a question here soon, drop me a note or Michael. But otherwise, again, I think we've been very impressed by the participation. The elements being proposed are all within the proposed budget of the project. Public Works is obviously primarily concerned in DOT about maintenance, and we've talked about that at length also. But I think overall, the elements proposed are within the scope of everything we've been talking about. So if you have nothing else, I think we are done on this subject.
Thank you, Kelly. Board, we sure all your questions been answered? Anybody got a last minute question? Not hearing any, then thank you, Betsy. Great job. Appreciate the hard work you put in on that, and amazed by the survey numbers. That's really it's really impressive, and we'll have to kind of communicate that out somehow, Kelly. That really good participation from the community on that, and thank you for coming, Betsy. And with that, I think the next item on the agenda is a recess to executive session. So do I hear a motion from anyone to do that?
I move that we recess to executive session pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A6 for land acquisition purposes.
Okay, I heard Jackie Wilson made the motion for recess. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I heard a second from Paul Bilga. So with that, is any further discussion from the board? If not, Robin, can you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Medley,
I'm here.
is that an aye vote?
I'm sorry, I was getting ready to ask you that question where that's an aye vote, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Sneed,
Aye.
Commissioner Sutton,
Aye.
Commissioner Vilga,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
That is a unanimous vote, Mayor.
Thank you, Robin. So with that, let's recess to executive session. Okay, I bring the town board back to order. We have just left closed session or executive session. We were discussing the negotiations on some property that the town is looking for future use for our facilities. And I will turn it over to Dave to give us introduction, and also Kelly. So it's all yours, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item on your agenda is a real estate purchase contract. The draft in front of you is dated December 21st, 2020. It has been signed by the sellers, Donnie Woodleaf and Patsy Woodleaf. This is a contract to purchase approximately 17 acres at $92,000 an acre, situated along Young Street. And the manager has additional information regarding this contract.
So, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, this land is land that has been identified as land that you, as a town, can build your future town hall and police department facilities on. Also, it is land that would accommodate a future Wake County Library site on. This land came to our attention after due diligence over the course of about last year of looking at tracts of land that are adjacent to or within the Roseville center of Main Street and Young Street. As you know, there are not too many large parcels that are available, except for the current land that we own on Main and Young. That land is under purchase agreement with Cobblestone for their development efforts in conjunction with the town. And since that purchase agreement has been made and we know the future of that land, we continue to need a site for town hall and police department. Currently, the town does own the site that the town hall is sitting on, but it is leasing the police department facility. And we have entered in recently into a 5-year lease in which we are gaining nothing out of that except for making lease payments. It has been a strong desire by the town board in the past to try and find a more permanent home for both the police and town hall. that would lend to a sense of community and place. And with that being part of the goal and vision of the Main Street Vision Plan and past town boards, we landed on this land, which is on Young Street, close to existing public facilities like the fire station and EMS facility. We had a landowner who was amenable and worked with the town to reach an agreement. And the agreement allows the town to have a 120-day due diligence period. So we will go ahead and do our due diligence on this parcel. If it is approved, we will also seek an appraisal to verify whether the price that we're paying at $92,000 an acre is appropriate. And sometime within the 120-day due diligence period, we will know whether we will enact and finalize the agreement. The contract also calls for closing 60 days after the 120-day period. So there is still opportunity for the town to gain information, make sure it's the right choice. But for now, we believe this is the right choice that will lead to a long-term place for town and Wake County facilities such as a library on this location. I can enter any questions on the agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion if you deem it proper at this time.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, based on the narrative from Kelly, and as I believe $92,000 is a very reasonable price, 120 days due diligence is more than enough time, I believe, for us to get the answers that we need. And the sellers allowing us to tie this land up, which is worth over which is priced at over 1.5 million, and we tied up for only $10,000. That is fully refundable, less $100 during the due diligence period. I move that we execute this contract.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Wilson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second. Second from Paul Vilga. Is there any more discussion? And I would say, I would encourage, commissioners to participate in any discussion you want to at this time. We can take a vote and then have some discussion afterward if you want to, either way. But any discussion on the motion, it would be acceptable for right now.
I just want to add a comment for the public before I cast a vote. I want to just indicate for not only this land purchase, for any future land purchase, that we ensure that any member on this board, whether a voting member or not, state if you have any family relationship or close friend relationship with anybody that we're looking to purchase land from. In past dealings on this board, not this current board, there has been some questions, and I just want to make sure that everything we do is above board and that we reveal any relationships that might exist prior to taking a vote, prior to making agreements. So I just want to make sure that that becomes a part of our process for.
I'd like to add to that if anybody stands to gain financially, that would be a conflict of interest, and that is not acceptable either.
So I just wanted to share that. Thanks, Jackie, for adding it.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion that we need to have at this time? From any other commissioners?
No.
Okay, I will call for a vote. I will say, in the spirit of Commissioner Sutton's request, that I do know the Woodliffe family. Been knowing them for 20 years. I have no personal relationship other than knowing them. And I have no financial relationships in anything dealing with the property. Any other commissioner want to make a statement before we vote on this land purchase? All right. Well, I will call for a vote then. All in favor? Well, I think we probably need a roll call on it, Robin, being we're virtual here. So if you don't mind, do a roll call.
Okay, this is on the the motion made by Commissioner Wilson to execute the contract, seconded by Commissioner Vilga. We'll start with Commissioner Medley. How do you vote?
Yay.
I'm sorry?
I vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sneed,
Aye.
Commissioner Sutton,
Aye.
Commissioner Vilga,
Aye.
and Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
And that is a unanimous vote, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Robin. And I think, we got 120 days here that we need to really do our due diligence on this, and I'm sure Kelly, you got a lot of directions on that. But also, commissioners, I would say, make sure you guys understand, what we're getting into. Make sure that it is a good deal for the town, a good location. And also, I'm sure we'll be hearing from some citizens. I know we need to talk some more with Wake County. I think we've been waiting a couple of years trying to find a site that Wake County would work with us on. And I think, this, it may be a good site for the library. We probably, need to dig in there a little bit in the next 20 days and be sure of that. Also, get any information, from the police department or facilities and that type of thing. So, so commissioners, just stay engaged, and also, make sure everybody is doing their job. And this is a big, big opportunity. And I think, looking at the property that we had was a good location. But, when it came up 2 years ago with the opportunity to use it for commercial and our vision to have more commercial, in Roseville, I think it was a good choice for us to go down that street of looking at having a commercial site where we had planned to have a town hall and police station and possibly a rec center too. We had talked about having a rec center there. So, so I think this site would be serving us just as well as that high visibility corner, commercial site, and probably, better for that. So, so it makes, I'm just suggesting to you that, Kelly will do his due diligence in this time and Dave will do his. And I'm just asking the board to, do yours. Make sure that, make sure at the end of the day, we don't look back and question, what we did. So with that, I will say any other discussion, any more comments from any of the other commissioners?
I think the site will be great if, everything goes through, because the walkability factor is crucial for our downtown. And I think that'll be a great complement to it. And I know the neighbors around there will welcome a walkable area like that. So I'm excited about it.
Great. Any other comments? All right. With that, any closing, any other, I guess, general closing comments from the board? I do go like you got something, Sheila.
I just had a question about the developments at Redford and Maine, the office complex. What's the status of that? And also, what's the status of the townhomes at Carlson Point?
May I answer, Mayor?
Yeah, sure.
We have been told by both of them that to anticipate first quarter, the next 2 months, start. That's the best information we have on both of them.
Yeah, and the only thing I know, I haven't, I haven't communicated with any of them at all, Sheila, so I don't know. But I did look on iMaps, which is, a website, and it appeared to me that the developer of that corner piece on, like you said, Radford Place and South Main has turned over hands, and the developer now owns it.
Mm-hmm.
So usually they don't buy something until they really sure they're going to do something. So to me, that's a very positive sign that it looks like that they may be doing something soon, hopefully.
Good.
Because
Good.
they made a big investment then,
Good. So with that, I just want to continue to mention the consideration of a sunset clause. And I know that a lot of people are like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that, or that's not a good idea. But I do think we need to consider, obviously barring economic conditions and things that could happen that's out of their control, we need to get a handle on if someone's going to come and propose something and we approve it and we're expecting it to come and then nothing. We need to get a handle on that. I feel like that should be something that we discuss along with maybe our R3 in our work session.
Yeah. And I do think the draft LDO is addressing that, Sheila.
Okay.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Very good. Any other commissioners? Okay, well.
Reminder, the next meeting's February 2nd. It has at least 3 public hearings, and I think, Mayor, you would like to hold that in person, since that's our public comment meeting.
The public hearings, we really need to, so we can actually see the people face to face, and that's what the public hearings are for. I think until, there's a bit better understanding of the COVA, any meetings that we can hold like this virtual, we will try to do it. So we're shooting for, if it's a more workshop meeting the second week in February, we'll try to do it the same. I think it worked pretty good tonight. So we'll try to do those type meetings virtual. But I do believe, we got a time for the public to come in and speak. And I do know one person that wants to come in and speak, or has asked to come in and speak to the board. So I think, unless something happens between now and then, we will plan to have a in-person meeting on the first of the month. Now, our policy states that Dave put together for virtual meetings, that I believe 1 or 2 can do virtual if you feel like you need to be quarantined or something, but we do need a quorum in town hall when we do that. Dave, is that right?
Town policy gives way to the new state statute. So to the extent that any member participates remotely, it then constitutes an emergency virtual meeting until such time that the legislature cleans up that statute. So in the event that a member is planning to participate remotely for an upcoming public hearing, if that's the case, we will need to take that into consideration. Any action will need to be held to allow for a 24-hour period for additional comment after that public hearing.
So that's our plans, and if something happens between now and then, we'll back up and punt on that. Just in the meantime, keep yourself, not only board members here, but the community as a whole, be sure you keep yourself safe, healthy, maintain your social distancing, wear your mask, wash your hands, not one time a day, but many times a day. And just stay healthy. I think most of us are under 65, so we've got to wait for the next round of vaccine. But I think as more and more people get the vaccine, maybe we're putting this thing further and further behind us. So let's just be careful the next 2 or 3 months, and hopefully we'll kind of see the downside of this coming. So I appreciate everybody attending tonight. Thanks for the work. Kelly, I think, the staff did an excellent job in the presentations in the workshop. Thanks for the preparation that was put into that. Got a lot accomplished tonight, and we will keep working at it in rest of 2021. So thanks a lot. Appreciate the board. And at this time, I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good
night,
night,
everybody.
everybody.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.